Hey y'all, it's Andrea with Sucs For You in Houston, Texas, and I've had a lot of requests for a video on fertilizing your succulents, so here we are. You always hear me suggesting to use topsoil because that means you have more control over the nutrients in your potting mix. The pre-bought stuff tends to come with the little tiny balls of time-release fertilizer. They're like little frog eggs. I'm sure you've seen them before. Succulents in particular, if they have too much nitrogen in their system at the wrong time, and it's not in balance with the other nutrients that they're processing, then there's a lot of things that could go wrong. First off, succulents really don't need any extra fertilizer. They're really good at making the most of the nutrients in the soil. The drainage materials you add to their mix have a lot of good minerals, and if they're getting rainwater, that contains a lot of good nutrients. So in a lot of situations, you don't even need to worry about it. But I know a lot of y'all are nurturers and you want to make sure your plants are happy. So some quick tips on fertilizing. Don't fertilize when they're not in their growing season. Don't fertilize like when they're dormant, say through winter. Don't fertilize when it's going to be overcast for a few days in a row. When you do fertilize, you want to use food that has a lower nitrogen content than the other nutrients. I'll explain why in a minute. You can dilute your all-purpose plant food, but you're going to need to, like if this one says mix 1 teaspoon per gallon of water for house plants, you're going to want to mix 1 teaspoon per 4 gallons of water for your succulents. And feed them as a part of their regular watering schedule. It's not an extra snack in between waterings. You just, water them as usual with the additional fertilizer in the water, and that's it. When I do feed my succulents, when I remember to, I use this Schultz Cactus Plus 7 drops per quart of water. I'll link to it in the video description below. And it's really simple. This bottle is like $7 maybe, and it lasts me at least a year. So when you're looking for fertilizer for your succulents, you're going to look for the fertilizer grade or the NPK balance, and that's the 3 numbers that are on most containers of plant food. And it's NPK, so those 3 numbers, the first, and those are the N is a chemical symbol for nitrogen, the P is the chemical symbol for phosphorus, and the K is the chemical symbol for potassium. And you want the nitrogen to be lower because they're already going to be getting a lot of nitrogen from, any kind of soil is already going to be it's going to be somewhat organic, and that means it contains nitrogen. Problems can arise when there's too much nitrogen in a plant, let alone in a succulent. Nitrogen encourages stem growth and leaf growth, and too much too soon in a succulent can not only cause the growth to become out of balance with the other things going on in your plant, like root growth. Pests detect nitrogen in plants, and that attracts them, and it will weaken your plant. And that's why a lot of times when you see mealybugs or even spider mites, that's a big one that is attracted to nitrogen. They tend to go for the new growth because that has the most concentration of nitrogen in it, like the new leaves. So since most potting situations, there's already plenty of nitrogen readily available, a good succulent fertilizer is going to have a lower content of nitrogen than the other nutrients. On the inverse, houseplants, they're putting out leaves, they're processing the nitrogen a lot more quickly because they're growing faster, so they're going to have a higher level of nitrogen in their food. So what plants use nitrogen for leaf growth and like the speed of the growth itself. Phosphorus is used to develop roots, flowers, and that means a chance of seeds. Potassium helps plants develop strong stems rather than like long stems, and it also helps them ward off diseases. So that you have the most control over when your plants are getting fed, I really recommend a liquid fertilizer as opposed to something you add directly to the soil, because again you don't have control over it. Once you let it go into the soil, every time you water, over time the plant's going to be steadily uptaking these nutrients that they may not need at that time. You want to stop fertilizing about a month before the end of a growing season, because a plant that is cold dormant or heat dormant isn't going to be able to process the nutrients correctly. In the end, you're probably going to be just fine not fertilizing your succulents. They're very efficient plants. They are very good at making the most out of what you give them or what's already in their soil, and that's what they are. That's what they do. They're slow growers. You don't want to try and force them to grow too fast. I know we all like to give our succulents a lot of extra love, but if you try to feed them at the wrong time, you know, they're not going to be happy. It can cause a lot of problems, and you can kill them with kindness. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and click show more under the video descriptions, because I always leave more information down there, like, you know, where I find this stuff. And I have to thank y'all. I hit 30,000 subscribers this week. We are 30,000 strong, and that is just, it's just mind-blowing to me. I'm so grateful. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you should, because when I post on the community page, it'll send out a notification. And you know, I'm always asking you guys, you know, what video topics do you want me to, you know, make for y'all? What's going on in your neck of the woods? What problems are you having right now with the climate? What do you want to know more about? And that's how I make sure that these videos mean something, and they're relevant, and they're helpful. And I need your feedback, so please subscribe. Thanks so much, y'all.